What's up guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Donks for anybody who's new here. This is a different type of video than I usually do. So for anyone who's new, I've been doing a series called The Way Home, and it's a mobile game. It's kind of like an old school type retro game where like you kill monsters and you go on to the next floor and they get stronger and you upgrade yourself and this, that and the rest. But for my existing viewers who enjoy the game, because there's a big audience for this game, to be honest. It's got about 1.5 million downloads or something, as far as I know, at least on Android. I don't know how much it has on Apple. It must have just as much. So it's got a big audience. And as I was playing the game, I did notice that like most of the characters were like decent, but there were some that were like so much better than the other ones, and some that were shit. So I just thought of the idea to do a tier list. Like, no one's done a tier list before. Why not me do the tier list? I mean, I played the party mode a lot. That's the mode where you play all these characters. I've nearly done 100 runs now, so I know the characters well enough, I would say. So welcome to my tier list video of The Way Home. Hopefully you guys enjoy it. I hope that you're having a nice day, and yeah, let's get into it. So firstly, we have Cheese. So Cheese is the main protagonist of the first like part of the game before you unlock party mode. He's essentially just a cat who has a bow and arrow. It doesn't do amazing damage. Off the top of my head, it does about 18 damage. It's reasonable. It gets the job done. But once you reach the higher floors, it's harder. You have to combine Cheese with like multi-shot and repeat fire. So essentially, it gives him more arrows to shoot in a wider direction and more sets of arrows. So multi-shot will allow him to shoot like for one shot 2, 3, 4. Repeat fire will allow him to shoot the 3 or 4 2 times, or up to 3 times actually, which on paper is quite powerful, but it's not that strong. So to be honest, I think I'm gonna put Cheese in B. I feel like some improvement could be put there. Like, it's not a bad pick. He's not a bad pick. He's not a great pick, but he gets the job done. He wouldn't be a bad choice to have on the team. But there's definitely people who are better at what he does than him. So I put him in B. Next we have Kevin. So Kevin's actually the second person. In fact, the first up to this skeleton here called Carl. These are the people that you meet inside the actual normal mode. So Kevin is the second person that you meet, and he's got like a little propeller on his head, and essentially his ability is chucking a boomerang that pierces through enemies, comes back. So it has the ability to hit enemies twice in one go, and as you level him up to max level, I think he can throw up to 5 at once, so 5 in all directions. And to be honest, at first I didn't really like him. His damage is a bit more than Cheese, but I didn't like the way that he worked. His boomerang kind of made it difficult, because a lot of the time only one of your boomerangs is being utilized, whereas the rest aren't as much. So for you to make him work, you essentially have to place yourself in the middle of the arenas, if that makes sense. So on each floor you have a big area that enemies are spawning on the sides, and they're coming into the middle. You need to sit in the middle and allow the boomerangs to hit all of the people. So to be honest, I think I don't want to put him in B, but I also don't want to put him in A. There was a B+. I'd put him in there. I think he excels when you use him in the right way. Like I said, you need to be in the middle, so you're utilizing all your boomerangs to hit the enemies twice. He does a lot of damage, but I'm gonna have to put him in B because he's definitely not A, in my opinion. Again, better choices to pick, so I'll stick him in B next to Cheese. Lucy. Now Lucy is incredibly powerful. She throws bombs at the enemy. She starts off with 1 bomb, and I think she can go up to about 5 or 6 if you combine her with multi-shot and then upgrade her to max level. For her to evolve, so evolution is when you reach the max level of someone, and it increases their damage by 50%, and it also has the potential to reduce damage taken by 30%. I think it depends on the person. For example, Blue Soul down here has minus 30%. I think Justice does. I think Lee does as well. But back to Lucy. her evolution is the money pig, so essentially that increases how much money you earn, which at my point I've fully upgraded. Sorry, I punched the mic then. I've fully upgraded everything, so the money pig doesn't really do much other than to help evolve her, which is okay. But initially her damage is about, I want to say about 45 or 50 per bomb, like on level 1, which is crazy powerful. It does splash damage and it burns people if they walk over the bomb spot. She is amazing. And also, one thing to note, she gets increasingly better as you go deeper into the floor. So once you reach floor like 30 upwards and you're seeing a whole bunch of enemies, she becomes amazing, simply because when she throws the bombs, she doesn't throw them at the enemy, she throws it in the general direction. So when she has a whole bunch of like 6 bombs and there's a bunch of enemies, she just throws them, just chucks them, and they just land and explode everything. There's no chance for the enemies. Crazy high damage, essentially one-shots enemies up until their last floors. And if you max her out, she does even more damage, like 60 to 70 or some shit crazy like this. So I would definitely put her in, oh, it's hard. Do I put her in S tier or A tier? You know what, I'll put her in A tier for now, and we'll come back to it. We'll see what she's saying once I've put more people in S tier. Costa. So Costa is one of the ghosts, the first ghost that we meet in the story, and essentially kind of like you kind of expect. He has like frost powers, ice powers. He chucks a snowball that spits out like almost like ice particles that when hit enemies they slow them. So he doesn't do amazingly high damage. He's kind of like a great all-rounder. He's a good addition to your team. I would definitely put him in B tier, simply because of the fact, I would put him in C tier if it was off how his abilities work by himself, but in a team, he works amazingly well. For example, he excels when you reach boss levels, simply because a lot of the bosses are difficult because you're having to weave your way through their attacks. It makes it really difficult for like people to kill them with certain characters, because like, for example, not the first boss is really easy. It's just a tree that chucks apples that split, nothing. But after that, the bosses become harder. The second boss is the knight that you see in the first island in the first game, and essentially he chucks a lot of fire orbs, he jumps, he bashes the ground and causes kind of like an earthquake to like come out and chase you. When you hit him with a slow, all of this damage and all of the potential of his abilities just essentially becomes obsolete. You can hit him for like 2 or 3 times as much damage before he even gets an attack off. So Costa himself, I would put a C, but in a team, he's amazing. So I would put him at B tier. Not special, not special. Jack. Now Jack is actually Costa's, Jack is Costa's dog. Oh, well, he says it's a cat, but it's a dog. Takes you a while to find him. And essentially what Jack is obviously a dog, so his attack is a bite. You have to get really, really close. Doesn't do high damage, just low damage in fact. But the thing that kind of is used to balance Jack is the fire trail that he has behind himself. So when he runs, he leaves a fire trail that actually does really high damage, but it's very awkward. In the fire trail, you kind of have to run around and make the enemies follow you in a line and force them to run in that fire trail. It just doesn't work. It just simply doesn't work. He, in my opinion, is probably the worst character in this game. Easily E tier. Nothing works. The only thing that actually works with Jack is if you personally pick Jack. So I'm rating this tier list off how they are as if you was to pick them. So if you was to pick Jack as your character, you're not gonna get anything done. Even the first levels are difficult without getting hit. I mean, I think my video that I did on Jack lasted about 10 minutes. It was so difficult. I couldn't get anything done. I had to get too close, and then the damage that I do when I get close wasn't even big enough to, like, you know, make up for that. only time he works is on the second boss when he jumps. If you place fire where he lands and then stand close, the fire does so much damage, but that is the only time, literally the only time it works. For you to make him work, it's too difficult. Easily E tier. Terrible, terrible, terrible character. Carl. Now Carl is the last person that we find in the main story mode. Skeleton, some dead guy. Essentially, he chucks a skeleton bone that ricochets between enemies, and I think he can throw up to 5 at once if you combine him with repeat fire. He actually is a very good pick, to be completely honest. He does quite high damage. I think he starts off around 20 damage, which is really good. And one thing about his skeleton, his attack is that it will always hit the enemies, which is something that kind of separates him from a lot of people, because some people's attacks aren't directed at the enemies who do as much damage as him. Some of them are like general, but his, the second he chucks it, it hits the enemies and then it ricochets up to 2 times, which actually all through the story is really useful, because you want to get rid of as many enemies as you can, and he's guaranteed to hit them. He will never miss. He will never ever miss. So he's a great character. His evolution gives him 50% plus damage. He gets a golden bone. So yeah, I think I'll put him in B tier for now. He gets the job done. Nothing special, nothing fancy, but he's not bad at all. He's a great pick. Chacha. So now Chacha is he's the first character that you find in this game that isn't part of the main story. And essentially she is a potion wielding witch. She essentially just chucks potions that are poisonous on the ground, and to kind of balance out that poison, because poison does over time damage to enemies. To balance that damage, essentially what she does is she does less damage initially. So she chucks the poison or the potion, whatever, it hits the ground, it does 18 damage, 15 to 18 damage initially, and then it like ticks that over time depending on if the enemies are in the little pool or not, because she leaves like green poison pools on the ground, if that makes sense. I think by herself she's not a very strong character. I feel like in a team she's an amazing character, but by herself, specifically for this tier list, she's not a very great pick. She doesn't do very high damage. There's nothing. How much damage she does depends on how many enemies there are in front of her. It doesn't really work. For example, a lot of the time when you get to high floors, although there's a massive amount of enemies, you never really get the opportunity to have them all racked up in one spot where she'll be able to do a lot of damage. So I'll actually put her in C tier by herself. She's not great. Wouldn't be my pick. Volt. Now Volt surprised me so much when I read his player card or statistics or whatever you want to call them before I ever even used him. It said that he does 50 damage or like 45 damage with about a 2-second delay, which to me wasn't very great, because I've always preferred doing less damage but with a shorter period of time, because you're able to weave the damage in more. So for example, with enemies like certain enemies, there's like these squid ones with like an eye, and they chuck an orb across the map and then it explodes in like a plus. Ow. You have to dodge them a lot, and there's just so much orbs to dodge, so much more like shit to think about when you've got someone who deals damage in such big times apart, if that makes sense, such spread out intervals, because you have less time to hit them, whereas someone like Cheese has an incredibly fast fire rate, can weave the damage in every now and then, can walk stop, and just continuously just dishing out damage. But I was very, very, very mistaken. With Volt, he shoots lightning, obviously. Voltage, the name Volt, lightning, electricity. He shoots lightning from the sky. His range is, I think he's got the longest range in the game. Maybe next to Lobo. So Lobo's this laser dude down here, but we'll get to him later. His range is crazy far, and he does do splash damage, but the enemies have to be close to each other. And essentially, if you combine him with multi-shot, so it allows him to hit more lightning strikes, max him out, and also give him, you don't even need attack bonus, but if you max him out, he becomes so overpowered. It's not even funny how strong he is. It's not even funny. The lightning strikes one-shot enemies literally up until the last floors, or like 1 to 2 shot enemies up until the last floors, from ranges that sometimes you can't even see the enemies on the screen before they die. There's been times where I've played him off camera, not recording. There's been times where I've played him by himself, and not even when I'm fully upgraded either, just normal. I'll be stood in the middle, completely stood still, and the enemies just die everywhere, and you don't even see them. He's so incredibly overpowered, it's not even funny. The only thing, like, for me, that's a downfall is the attack length, but it gets solved because his evolution is his evolution like skill that he needs is the attack speed boost. So when you get the speed boost, and when you reach level 49, you'll have the speed boost maxed out anyway, as well as him. The attack length means nothing at that point. It's crazy. It's just bang, 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 and everyone dies. S tier. It's as simple as that. He is incredibly strong. He deserves to be S tier now. Bebop. Bebop was actually the first person that I unlocked after Cheese, obviously, because Cheese is the main character, so Cheese is the first person you unlock in party mode. Bebop was the second one that I encountered, or got, whatever you want to say. And it's funny, for anyone who liked anime, I'm pretty sure this is a reference to Cowboy Bebop, the anime. Probably. I would like to think it is, because I'm an anime fan. I mean, I haven't seen that anime, but I would like to think it is a reference. So anyway, so Mr. Cowboy Bebop, he shoots one bullet, a big bullet, that hits the enemies for around 30, and then it splits out. It kind of like shrapnel, or whatever you want to call it. Like a hollow point bullet that when it hits someone, it like this, almost like a shotgun pellet or something like this once it hits them. And at the start of the game, I was like, oh my gosh, this guy is so good. Oh, he's great. He's fucking awesome. He's so strong. Until he wasn't. He's very weak. His max damage doesn't even kill enemies in one shot. His ricochets don't even kill enemies. The only thing his ricochets are useful for is when you're getting clustered by lots of enemies, like little ones. But other than that, he's a terrible pick. Never pick him on your team, ever. D tier. He's better than Jack because he actually does damage. I don't have to die trying to kill people. But there are much better picks than him, in my professional opinion. I'm not a professional, I'm taking the piss, but yeah, he's not a great pick. Momo. See, it made me laugh the first time I found Momo, because I was like, why would they call a rabbit Momo? Like, just done her dirty big time. Anyway, essentially she's a carrot, obviously, you would think. She's a carrot chucking rabbit. Doesn't do very high. Well, actually, she does high damage, but in low amounts. That doesn't make sense. She chucks a carrot that does high damage, but like only one. She can throw up to 3 at once, I think, and it hits one enemy, and that's it. The thing that makes her special is she has a 3% chance to drop a heart when she kills an enemy, or when she's helped kill an enemy. So if she hits an enemy and then your teammates kill it, they have a 3% chance to drop a heart. When you evolve her, I think she chucks like radishes or something. The carrots turn like red, or like parsnips, whatever you want to call them. I can't quite remember. Don't come for me. I'm uneducated in vegetables. Anyway, so Momo, once she's evolved, she gets a 5% chance to drop hearts, which doesn't seem like that much, but when you reach the highest floors, you're killing hundreds of enemies per floor. Like, I would say on average each floor probably get about 15 to 20 hearts, which is a lot. It's very a lot. It's a lot, and it helps a lot because there's been certain times where like you're stuck in a corner and you can just run straight through the enemies because there's so much hearts and come out the other side unscathed. My thing is, as your character, she very, 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 very quickly becomes obsolete. The only thing that makes her good is her heart drop, but not for you. She does low damage. Yeah, she does low damage. I would only suggest having her in your team, and even so, you don't need her, because if you was to get lifesteal, you don't need her at all. I would not suggest picking her. Although she starts off as a great pick, when you're lower in the game, I wouldn't suggest keeping using her. Excuse me, it's not worth it. A man like Justice is a boxer. Excuse me. Justice is a boxer, clearly close range damage, just like Jack. Can throw up to 3 punches. He does like a right, a left, and then like a third one. But that's when he gets evolved, and it's like a golden glove. Low damage, has to be close to the enemies. There's nothing really else I can say about him. He's terrible. I mean, when he evolves, he does 50% more damage and receives 30% less. But it was still incredibly difficult. How good you do with Justice, as well as Jack, depends on how good you've got a team. How good a team you've got around surrounding yourself. Yeah, E tier. Terrible pick. Terrible pick. Wouldn't pick him if I was you guys. Carlisle. So Carlisle is like kind of like one of them olden days magicians with his top hat, or like a businessman or gambler, more like. Kind of reminds me of Gambit. I think is it Gambit? I can't even remember. I used to play, the Marvel Lego games and the superhero ones. There used to be this dude called Gambit. He chucked cards. He was like one of my favorite characters. Anyway, Carlisle. He chucks cards, and every 5th card that he throws is a special golden card that explodes and does splash damage. He does nice damage. He can chuck up to 5 cards at once. When he evolves, every 4 cards that he throws is an explosive card or a golden card, which is really great. He does high damage to singular enemies, but once you reach higher floors, he's not that good anymore, to be honest. So I wouldn't suggest having him on your team. There's much better people to pick. I feel like the people who do splash damage in this game are much better picks than someone like him who does damage towards one enemy. So he doesn't deserve to be... I don't think he deserves to be in B. I think he deserves to be in C. I don't think he does enough. I think like he would need to either do higher damage, or his explosion range needs to be bigger than what it is. Because to be honest, he's not great. Right, Lottie. Lottie is actually quite funny. When I unlocked Lottie's memory card, it was actually like there was a little girl like playing with like, I don't even know, I think it's supposed to be like, what do Americans call that? Gumballs. Like gumballs? Or kind of like the jawbreaker type things. For all my English peoples. Messing around with the machine, and that must have been him. Anyway. So what Lottie does is obviously throws gumballs. Multicolored gumballs, any colour, that all do elemental damage, which is great. Which is really, really good. So the red ones do fire, the blue do ice, the yellow ones do electric, the green ones do poison. And he can chuck at his max level anywhere between 5 and 9 orbs, which is actually a lot, and they do high damage and all do elemental damage. He is a very, very, very great pick. Although there is better picks than him, he is not a bad pick to have on your team. You have to combine him with Repeat Fire though to make him, just to put him to that next level. And his evolution, the balls become, I think they become like bright gold, pink, blue, and they like flicker. And I think they're like random what type of elemental damage that they can do. But Lottie is definitely a great pick for the team. He's not always my pick, but he is a very great pick. He deserves to be an A, in my opinion. A very great pick. Lobo. Now, Lobo is one of my favourite characters. Essentially, he's a robot that shoots a laser that pierces straight through enemies. Can do as much damage as, like... In fact, he can do probably the most damage in the game, depending on how the enemies are racked up. Maybe next to Dr. Mori, actually. But still, a piercing laser that goes. I think it actually spreads across the whole map essentially, or at least the like foreseeable map, whatever you want to call it, the visual, observable map. So I wouldn't suggest playing Lobo as your character simply because when there's a lot of enemies in a lot of directions, he doesn't really get the job done because he can only shoot in a straight line. As you evolve him, he does 50% more damage, and his laser actually gets wider. So initially he's starting his lasers like thin, but as he gets upgraded, it becomes much wider, does a lot more damage. I think he's a great pick to have on your team, but as the character to choose for yourself, I think he deserves to be. I think he deserves to be B tier. If there was a B plus, I'd put him in B plus. Works much better in the team. Zilla, guard Zilla's child or something like this. Cousin, far distant cousin who needs braces. Anyway, Zilla. Zilla is essentially like a dragon type thing, and you would expect a dragon to breathe like some fire breath, but Zilla's is actually, well, it's not even poisonous, it's just green because he's green. He's like, my thing is, I reckon he's related to them dragons that spit fire at me and shit. Maybe they're mad at us or something, I don't know. Maybe they're mad at me for taking Zilla away from them because he prefers meeting them. Anyway, so Zilla does area damage outwards. When I did my run, I would suggest that you combine Zilla with what do you call it? The range extension. It's kind of like an arrow that's like up and down and then across. Very great pick with Zilla. I would suggest everyone to do that. He does actually high damage and will hit as many people that are in front of him. His evolution is awesome. He makes like a noise. It's like a I don't even know how to make it, but he does 50% extra damage, and his fire becomes purple, which just looks awesome in my opinion. He's a great pick. He's one of my favorite picks. He grew on me a lot, to be honest. When I started, I didn't think he was going to be that good, but in my opinion, he's a very, very, very strong pick. So I put him in A tier. Next up, Blue Soul. So Blue Soul is like a knight that basically bashes his sword on the ground and it causes an earthquake or like a strike. You get it? In the ground that goes boom, 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 will go straight through enemies. As you upgrade him, it does more directions. It can do up to 5 directions, kind of like Kevin. It's kind of like a type of Kevin attack, to be honest, but it doesn't come back, but it does much more damage per hit. And people who get hit by it get stunned, so they get knocked back and kind of slowed a little bit. I would suggest having him on your team. I think he's a great pick. Even as yourself, even though you have to get close, you hit them before they can even hit you, and it knocks them back and stuns them, so you just kind of simultaneously just keep hitting them. You get it? I think he's an amazing pick. Because obviously you're close range, you also get the 30% damage reduction. Everyone gets 50% plus damage, but he also gets the 30% damage reduction, which for me is a really great thing. Especially if you combine it with him, because he doesn't suffer from all that close range detriment type shit like Justice and Jack do. You get it? He gets close to them but doesn't even take much damage, and he naturally has more health. I think he has like the most health, as well as like Maria, 150 I think, straight off the bat. And for him to evolve, you have to get the HP boost or max health boost. It's like Red and Man flexing, and so as you get that and you evolve him, and by the time you get to the last floors, you'll have that maxed out, and he'll have so much health, like rocking around 200 and odd. There's nothing that can do. He's an amazing pick. He's not S tier, but he's A tier in my opinion. He's a very great pick. Wendy. Now Wendy is the person who surprised me the most. I had Wendy on my team once, and I was like, I don't know, I don't like this person. Like, she doesn't seem like a very great pick. She throws tornadoes at enemies, small tornadoes like this, like kind of slow them in the spot, do like kind of almost like a poison damage like Chacha, so it's like 18, 18, 18, 18, and she continuously chucks it and it slows them. It never seemed like a great pick to me until I picked her myself to show her evolutionary journey in the videos. One of the later ones that I did, I remember. She actually turned out to be one of my favourite characters in the game, to be completely honest. At her max, at her max level, she can throw up to 5 tornadoes at enemies, like in this pattern, so like 2 here, 2 here, and 1 in the middle, and they're much bigger than they are at the start, doing increased damage, slowing a bunch of enemies at once. If there's enemies in front of you, they're all getting hit. All of them are getting hit. She's an amazing, amazing pick. You combine her with movement speed, I believe. I'm sorry if I'm wrong, but I want to say it's movement speed if I remember. I would actually suggest picking her on your team if you can. She turns out to be an amazing person, amazing character to play as. She has the potential to do a lot of damage singularly and attack multiple people at once. She slows them, so it gives her the maneuverability kind of buff, you could say, or like maneuverability advantage. Bro, I can't speak. Maneuverability advantage, as well as her speed boost. When you evolve her, you'll have even more speed, so you'll be fast as fuck. There's no blind spot with Wendy, in my opinion. She covers everything. She's like an all-rounder, but like pushed to the max level. Wendy's S tier for me, easily S tier. Next up, Maria. So, bro, that is not the right height. God damn. There we go. Next up, Maria. So Maria is like, I think she's like a nun who prays. She has like a little crucifix. She has like an aura around her that does damage, and essentially that's her only way of doing damage. It's kind of like an earthquake area, you could say. Sorry, I was looking down there. It looked like there was a bee on my windowsill, and I couldn't tell, but it's not. But anyway, so she has like an aura around her, kind of like an earthquake or like a pulse that goes. Has to get incredibly close. She literally has to run through enemies to do damage. In my opinion, she's not a very well designed character at all. She's a terribly designed character. You have to get the closest out of all the enemies to hit. But I will say she has natural lifesteal. So at the start she has lifesteal, and I never had a run where I got lifesteal to the max level with her to see how well it could be. But still, I don't see her working. She was never a great pick, not even as a teammate. Yeah, I'd put her in D tier, honestly. She's not as bad as Justice and Jack because she has the lifesteal, and her ult, she obviously gets 30% less and 50% more damage. Whatever you want to say, but there's much better picks. She's not a great pick at all. To improve her, I would just remove her from the game, as well as Jack and Justice. Anyway, Sophia. I didn't mean that, by the way. She's just not a great pick in my opinion. Not for my playstyle anyway. Sophia is a must on every single team. She just is a must. She throws up a thorn wall at enemies that does, I think at the max around 30 to 40 damage. Because, the enemies will run at you regardless of anything. They will always run at you. And when she throws up the thorn wall, they run continuously into the thorns, and it's like a continuous damage like Chacha or who else I was talking about before, I can't even remember, or Wendy. Yeah, like that continuous damage in the thorns. When she's evolved, she does 50% more damage, and she has I think 6 thorns that become like green with flowers, like yeah. It's very beautiful. Anyway, they run into the thorns and they all get caught in it and they die. They can't pass it. Enemies can throw spears over it and chuck orbs through it and shit, but you can dodge them easily. But when there's a huge amount of enemies, she stops them from even getting close. As you yourself playing her, she works just as well as having it in your team. She is a must-have on every single team. I think if anyone, you should have her. Combined with someone who does splash damage, if you used to combine Sophia with Lucy, combine her with Wendy, combine her with Volt, she is an amazing pick. I cannot fault her in any way. She does high damage, stops the enemies from getting close. Her attacks come extremely fast. She's great team play, she's great singularly. She's a must-have on every team. If there was one person who I think deserves to be on every team, she deserves to be here. She has to be. Lee. Now Lee, I have like a love-hate relationship with. On a team, I think he works quite well, but by himself, his booty cheeks. He don't work. He doesn't work. He has, they're called prayer orbs, so I think he's kind of like a monk type guy. He looks like a monk, and he has these prayer orbs that come around him, and they spin like this. He can have up to 4 at once, and they all have the Japanese kanji for the numbers. So like 1 has like the line ichi, ni, san, yon. It's like a square kind of with the little top corners in, and it knocks back enemies. But as you, like, if you're playing him as your like character, it doesn't really work, because although he hits them, so he sometimes even hits them into himself. I mean, the only time he works amazingly well is if you're on the floor where none of the enemies actually throw anything, so they're all melee enemies. And let's be honest, that never happens. That never ever happens. So I wouldn't suggest ever picking him out. I'll put him in D tier for now. The only way I ever made him work, like, at all, was essentially when the enemies were kind of chasing me in a line and I would run diagonally, because his balls spin anti-clockwise. The enemies would be in a line like this. Actually, this is opposite for you guys now. Let me think. Yeah, okay, so I'll do it this way so you guys can understand. So the enemies run this way and his balls spin this way on the screen, so hopefully that shows anti-clockwise for you. And if you run up here, the balls will continuously hit them and smack them. And then as you come down the other way, they'll keep hitting them. And that's the only way to actually do damage, but it's too awkward to pull off. It's too difficult. It's just not... It's not a great design for a character, I think. Like, it's funny. All the people who are at the bottom are all like close range warriors. It just doesn't work very well in the game. The one that they got right was Blue Soul. Blue Soul is a very well designed character for someone who's close range. But Lee, Maria, Jack, Justice, I wouldn't suggest playing them. Anyway, Dr. Mori, no question, S tier. There is no question. Dr. Mori is easily the strongest character in the game. There is no question about it. He does what Cheese does, but with like buzz saws, like them circular saws that pierce through all enemies. Do around, I want to say they do around 30 damage per saw at his evolution level, and they have a 70% chance of putting a bleed effect on the enemies, which does a lot of damage. So he's the only one who has that bleed effect, and essentially what it does is it cuts them, and it's almost as if a real life type thing. You cut someone and they bleed, and that does damage. He has a 70% chance, but like I explained before, if you remember me talking about Cheese, if you combine Cheese with multi-shot and repeat fire, the same as Dr. Mori, because Dr. Mori has the same upgrades, you chuck so many saws that a 70% chance 3 times is essentially 100%, if that makes sense. All enemies will get bled, all of them, unless they die on that first hit. And once he even at the bottom levels, but even at like the max floors, like literally floor 47, so the one before you actually fight the last 2 bosses, Dr. Mori and that weird head thing, all of them, like bosses, all of them floors, sorry, he has no difficulty. Each floor is as easy as the last. He does everything perfectly. He does incredibly high damage, he has bleed effect, he has amazing range, he has like range lengthways and like area of effect range. His attack speed is really fast. There is no way to fault Dr. Mori. Like, every game has like one of them people who is just like overpowered. Like, there always has to be one, and it would be him because he's the mastermind in the main game behind all of the forgotten or whatever you want to call him. He is very easily the strongest character in the game. Now, I'm looking at Lucy and I'm thinking, does she deserve to be S tier? It's hard to say. Clearly, the 4 S tiers would be my choice for the strongest team if you can help it. Everything is covered there. Sophia keeps them all at a range so that you have less chance of getting hit close up or being overwhelmed. Wendy does splash damage, so if Sophia is holding them in place, Wendy hits them all. Vault has the highest range in the game. It will hit people miles off before they even get close, and incredibly high damage. Dr. Mori, they're all stood there in a group, lined up, clumped up, whatever. Sophia's wall, and then he just destroys them. Every single area is covered in that squad. It's a dream team. The only thing that I would contemplate replacing is Wendy for Lucy. I can't seem to differentiate it. Actually, no, Wendy. And the reason I choose Wendy, I don't think Lucy deserves to be A tier. I think Wendy is a better pick than Lucy because once you've fully upgraded everything, Lucy's cash pig or whatever it's called, the thing that makes you earn more money to evolve her, doesn't do anything. It doesn't offer anything to the characters. Whereas Wendy, you at least get speed boost, and speed boost is extremely useful. You're able to bob and weave through the enemies very easily with a speed boost, whereas the cash pig does nothing. So I will say Wendy's a better pick than Lucy. So I don't think Lucy deserves to be S tier, but she's the closest to being S tier than the people under. I'm very happy with this tier list. But yeah, that's my tier list done. Let me know if you guys agree or disagree, if you feel like anybody needs to be changed, in your opinion needs to be up or down, or what would your idea of a dream team be for the people who love this game, because there's a lot of people who like this game. So let me know in the comments, guys. Let me know what you think. Let me know what you think to my list, what your list would be, any changes and whatnot. So yeah, guys, thank you for tuning into this video. I appreciate all the support. Thank you, guys. We're still going strong on YouTube. I'm really enjoying getting into this like new, I don't want to say new lifestyle, but just it's a nice routine for me, like waking up and then let me record a video, let me edit, let me do this, let me do that. I'm really enjoying it. So yeah, I wouldn't be able to do it without you guys, so thank you. So yeah, guys, I'll see you in the next video. I'm probably gonna do another video on this, to be honest. I wanna do a video on how strong they are against bosses particularly, and also a video on what characters you would need for each player, but what characters you need for each player, like which 4 altogether, to make the perfect team surrounding your character. But we'll see, I'm not sure, I'll see. But yeah, I enjoyed making this video. So again, guys, thank you, and I'll see you in the next one. Love and peace, guys. See you later.